Imagine being 80 and the best times of your life was when you were 18 years old, 22 years old. Like, no, like we should be walking into more glory days. What are you going to continue to create? Hey y'all, what's up? My name is Gabby. If you're new here, welcome and welcome back to my channel. So today I really want to talk about and get into the concept of evolving and just leaving the thoughts of who you were behind you. So I was just thinking this morning about how I'm in a place where I'm moving forward and I'm super ready to move forward and really be the best version of who I am that I've ever been in my life. So many of us are striving to be the best version of ourselves, but I think at the same time people are missing their old selves. From time to time you'll see a post where people say that they miss the old them, how people took a good heart and stomped on it and they turned a certain type of way, or how people just be like, I want to get back to me, after they fall into a slump or depression or whatever it may be. And in my experience, I just can't relate when people say that, because there's not any part in my life where I can think back on that I would want to go back to. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing back there that I would want. Even when I was at a point in my life where my body was at an optimal weight and I was in shape, flat stomach and all that, and I just looked really good physically, I wouldn't want to go back to that, because even though I had that body then, I didn't have the right mindset back then. I was naive back then when I had that body. When I was at a place where my heart was more pure, because people hadn't come into my life to do what they wanted with it. I was very deep in people pleasing and I didn't realize it at that time. So if I were to want to go back, I would have to pick and choose certain things that I wanted to keep, but not just a certain version of myself. Like there's no version of myself that I miss or I would say I want to get her back. I want her to stay where she at, and I want her to rest, and I want to become the best, most womanly, grown woman version of myself. I have a different body now. I've had children, so my body has changed in certain ways. Like my hips are wider. I prefer that versus what I had back in the day, pre-babies. I got hurt a lot in certain friendships and relationships, but that's knowledge I was able to obtain in real life experiences to take me further into the future. So many times we get stuck on the memories of what we had and what we were, and we don't think about the fact that the person that we were at that time, the mindset and the lack of knowledge that we had at that time, is what got us to a point of being who we are today. Most likely, if you found yourself in a slump, depressed, or just in a place where you don't want to be anymore, it's most likely that things happened to you in your life that you didn't know how to cope or deal with that got you where you are today. Just not knowing what to do got you here today, or the decisions that you made back then got you here today. So the version of yourself that you're missing, that you want to get back to, is the same version that ended you up where you are right now. And what we want to do is cherish that person, love that person, that part of ourselves, who we were at that time, but realize that there were some discrepancies in our knowledge, and that we need to take the time to fill those gaps of information, to fill ourselves up with love and more knowledge and all those good things, to build on top of that person, to continue building to be the best version of ourselves. It's hard to build a version of yourself if you don't take what you were into consideration. For you to be where you're at right now and to be unhappy, you most likely did the best you could to get here. And even if you feel like you didn't do the best you could to get here today, there's probably some reason behind it. Maybe you were a procrastinator and you just didn't have the skills, or the discipline to do what you needed to do. Maybe you were a type of person who wore your heart on your sleeve and you didn't know how to manage yourself and manage those emotions. For a time period when we mess up in life and when we fail, I don't generally believe that it's our fault, because when we're children, we need to be guided and there needs to be someone who helps us and gives us this information. But so many times we don't have that. Like, we don't have those resources, and we end up falling into this system of routines, whether good or bad, that continue on through our lives. We get into things that we probably wouldn't naturally do, but we end up liking them. We end up making decisions that are not sound based on desperation or a need, or we just take what we get because we feel like that's the best we can get and it's better than nothing. We learn a lot of these things on the way because we were not given a guide or some type of advice of what better to do. Sometimes we do have those gems in our life, that person, whether it's a parent or an aunt and an uncle or a teacher or just someone who drops these random seeds of knowledge that stick with us forever. That's enough for us to hold on, but not for us to stand in confidence and learn and grow and go about life in a more intentional, smart way, I guess. Because sometimes we do things that are dumb, but we don't realize that it was dumb until after the fact because we just didn't know, or we just weren't thinking. But that's a part of life, especially when you don't know what you're doing and you're just trying to figure it out or see what happens, or you may not even potentially know what the consequences are. I had a period of time in my life where when I was young, after my brother died, I started to miss who I was before because I changed a lot after he died. I used to be more bubbly and I laughed more back then, and I had a springy sort of tone in my voice all the time. I remember one day after my brother passed, it was probably like a week or two after he passed, I was talking to my mama and I was talking just in a way of like, yeah, I know, I understand, just that sort of tone. And my mama asked me, why are you talking like that? And I said, what? This is just my voice. And in that moment, I'm like, yeah, this is me now. I missed who I was, and I felt and realized that I had changed, but I had to come to the understanding that I changed for a very legitimate reason. My brother was gone now. I had experienced death before. Like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I had lost one of my older cousins, and my great grandma had passed away, so I had experienced death, but this death just hit really different. And when he died, it's like a part of me died too. And I realized that I could overcome what had happened in my family and what happened to my brother, but that it was okay for me to become a new version of myself, even if I didn't remain a person who talked in a more monotone voice all the time. That situation made me grow up a lot faster, because though I saw what could happen in life, because there was actually this guy that me and my brother knew, he died, he got shot, and my brother was the one who called me to tell me that it had happened to him, because we were both cool with him. So yeah, so I was aware of the reality around us, but I just never thought that it would happen to my family or anybody that I was that close and connected to. So I had to take that experience and become a new me. It was okay for me to be who I was at that time, because that was a result of my reality and my grief. So I never went back to that girl I was before. Things just kept happening in my life. I kept losing people that were immediate family members, like really close to me, and things were hard just in my relationships, in school and college. So life just continued lifing for quite some time. But where I am now, I know that even though I'm not that girl that I was in that time of not really having to deal with too much other than school, even though I'm not that young girl anymore who who had less responsibilities and was just living her young life. I'm now a woman who has grown from those experiences and who can take that knowledge to apply to my life, continuing my future, and to my children or whoever else I might be around or talking to. Most of the times when we change and we get to a place where we don't like where we are and we miss the old us, there was some lack that allowed us to even walk down that path. Like, my brother died, I didn't know anything about how to deal with that. Like, my mom didn't either, nobody did. Our family changed after he passed away, and we never really had to sit down and talked about it. That's just something that nobody just knows off the gate how to handle, because you don't think something like that is going to happen to you. It's just stuff that you hear about in other people's families or that you see on TV, and it had already hit in our family. But it's still different when it hits your immediate family. It's okay to miss that person that we were and to love and to cherish them. But I think it's more important to leave it at just that. Allow that version of you to rest. They did the best that they could. And take a look at your life now and who you are now to want to be better than who you were then. We should never want to go back to a person we were. We should always want to be better than who we were then, so that we can be the best version of ourselves now. That's what I think of when I think of myself and the things that I desire, where I want to go and what I want to do. I want to be someone that's like, I just want to feel better than I ever have before. I want to feel freer than I ever have. I want to be at more peace than I've ever been. Like, I want to be so happy and well off that the former me is happy and proud of what we were able to become. We should always be moving forward. There are some times where we fall backwards or we remain stagnant, but at the end of the day, as long as you know you're going to keep pushing forward at some point, that's really what it's about. Don't linger in the past for too long, because it's gone. You know, there's nothing that we can do about that time back then, but you can take lessons from that time back then to apply it to now to have a greater future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and that's scary, but that's also what makes it exciting. There's so much opportunity there for something amazing to happen, for something life-changing to happen, for us to be able to step in a realm that we've never been in before, to be the best us. I often hear older people say that there's no part in their life that they will be able to go back to, and I totally understand, because at that time they've already ironed out so many things and found themselves and all this type of stuff that they don't miss any of that. Like, they would rather be where they are right now than to be 20 again or to be 30 again. But the way the world is changing and all of the resources and information and people that we have access to today, we don't have to wait until we're 40, 50, 60, or however old to get to that place where we're like, you know, I had fun back then, or that situation was good back then, but I don't want to go back to that. Even with being in your 40s and 50s, to me, like, that's still young. That is still so young, and it may not feel like it if you are in your 40s or your 50s, but my mom is 49, and when I look at her, I'm like, my mom is still young, and I can see that my mom, she is in her season. My mom be hanging with her sisters, she be hanging with her friends, they be traveling, like, she be living it up, you know. And with all the information we have, we know that we can start doing this stuff sooner than what society has always told us. You can't travel freely and do whatever you want until you retire in your 60s or your 70s. You can't enjoy life until you're in your 60s or your 70s. When you're in your 70s or 80s, you look back on your life and think of all the glory days. Like, no, like, we should be walking into more glory days. Even if we're not in a good place right now, taking steps right now, today, to get ourselves back in a place where we feel good, where we are free, and we're doing things to pour self-love into ourselves so that we can continue to create these great memories, so that the past us could look at the future us and think, dang, okay, yeah, do that. You know what I mean? All of our greatest days don't have to be in the past. I know this one woman who almost every time I talk to her, she's in her 60s. She talks about high school and college. Like, those were the best times of her life. And yeah, there are a lot of great things that happened during those times, but what about now? You know, what about now? What are you going to continue to create? How are you going to continue to have more days to look back on? Imagine being 80 and the best times of your life was when you were 18 years old, 22 years old. Like, no, that's too big of a gap of a deficiency. And we gotta continue to move forward so that we can build on that person, build on that version of us, to continue to have more fun, freedom, great days and experiences to come. I didn't know what my life would be like after losing my brother. Life just kept going. It just kept moving. It kept happening, and I kept having to adapt. The pain of losing somebody, especially somebody abruptly, which every loss I've had has been abrupt and they've been young. It's, man, you can't wish that type of pain on anybody. But I have to take that knowledge and know that it's made me more knowledgeable and stronger and more trusting in God. Sometimes I think about those people who have never lost anybody and what that's going to be like for them when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they lose somebody close to them for the first time. That's going to be some pain that they can't fathom, that they don't even know what to do with. Believe me, I would love for my loved ones to still be here, but they didn't belong to me. They didn't belong to us. They belong to God. And for whatever reason, it may have been for God, it was their time to go. And I just feel at peace knowing that they are in a better place than what we are living in right now. And I took those lessons and the way I changed to be a better, stronger version of me. It can be very difficult, but at some point you do learn to be happy again, because like I said, life will continue to life. And I've heard it said that life doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. And I love that so much. It's so true. That's one that you should definitely keep in your back pocket. Sometimes we get that wisdom from a book or from a person, but so many times we get that wisdom and just from our personal experiences to build that strength. And we always have Jesus, we always have God to lean on and the word to get us through those times. That's it for today, y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I love you so much, and until next time, peace and love. I'm out. Don't forget to subscribe.